Hello everyone, welcome to Geography class for class 7. Today we are going to continue the same lesson number 4, the weathering and soil formation. In the previous video, we had done introduction and rocks and types of rocks. In today's video, we are going to discuss weathering, its meaning, types of weathering, mechanical weathering, chemical weathering, biological weathering, and factors affecting weathering. In today's video, children will be able to understand what is weathering, what is gradation, different types of weathering, analyzes the factors that affect weathering. Before starting with the topic, let's recall some terms and cross questions. Weathering, rock, igneous rock, sedimentary rock, metamorphic rock, magma, lava, sediments, fossils, intrusive igneous rock, extrusive igneous rock. Cross questions. What is rock? Name the different types of rocks. Why igneous rocks are called the primary rocks? Give 2 examples of intrusive igneous rock. Give 2 examples of extrusive igneous rock. Name the elements of Earth's crust. Give some examples of sedimentary rock. Name the rock which is rich in fossils. Terms to be discussed in this topic. Weathering. Weathering is disintegration and decomposition of the rocks at or near the surface of the earth. Gradation. Gradation is the process in which erosion, transportation as well as deposition work is done by only one agent. For example, glaciers and running water. Mechanical weathering. The splitting of original parent rock without undergoing any chemical change is called the mechanical weathering. Granular disintegration. When rocks disintegrate grain by grain due to expansion and contraction and variation in temperature is known as granular disintegration. Block disintegration. When big blocks of rocks disintegrate from the main rock along the parallel joints or cracks, it is known as block disintegration. Exfoliation. Peeling away of the sheet of the rock like onion peeling is called exfoliation. Chemical weathering. The disintegration of rocks because of the change in their chemical composition is known as chemical weathering. Biological weathering. The weathering of the rocks caused because of action of living beings like animal, plants or human beings is called biological weathering. Let's start with the reading. Weathering plays a vital means important role in the process of gradation. Weathering is the disintegration and decomposition of the rocks at or near the surface of the earth. Disintegration is the breaking up of the rock into fragments, means pieces, whereas decomposition is the decay, means to destroy, of rocks due to chemical action. Weathering is the process by which the rock exposed on the surface gets broken up into the small particles. Here, disintegration means breaking up of rocks. A number of factors such as heat, cold, action of frost, plants, animals, and chemical reaction help in weathering. These factors are called agents of weathering. The process of weathering involves the breaking down of the rocks on or near the surface of the earth. The rocks break up when they are exposed to the different weather phenomena, means conditions like changes in temperature, means degree of hotness or coldness, precipitation means rainfall, humidity means amount of water vapor present in the air, plants, animals and humans. The rocks near or on the surface of the earth constantly break into pieces and decay. The process of weathering does not involve the transportation or removal of broken rock material. It is done by the various agents of erosion. Means weathering does not involve the removal of broken rock material. This is done by the various agents of erosion like running water, wind, waves and moving ice. In the other words, we can say that weathering is a static process, means process change over a long period of time. Thus, the weathering is different from gradation, means it is a process in which erosion, transportation as well as deposition work is done by only one agent. For example, glaciers, running water. which is a dynamic process. Dynamic means which constantly changes and progresses. Moreover, weathering prepares the material for transportation by the other agents of gradation. Let's recall the points which we had already discussed in a form of difference, weathering and gradation. First point, breaking up of the rock is known as weathering. Gradation means erosion, transportation and deposition. It is a process in which erosion, transportation as well as deposition work is done by only one agent. Agents of weathering are present in the atmosphere, means blanket of air that surrounds the earth. Agents of gradation are present on the earth's surface. The main agents of weathering are temperature changes, humidity means amount of water vapor present in the air, temperature, frost, plants, animals and humans. Gradation. The main agents of gradation are running water, wind, moving ice, waves. Weathering. It is a static process, means process changes over a long period of time. Gradation. It is a dynamic process, means it constantly changes and progresses. In this way, you can see that weathering and erosion are the two degradational processes which decay and break rocks into the smaller pieces. Do you know? Weathering prepares the material for transportation by the other agents of gradation. Weathering is the basic process of soil formation. Weathering is decay or disintegration of the rocks that exposure to the atmosphere. Weathering prepares materials for transportation. It is the basic process of soil formation. It is the process of breaking up of the rocks which are exposed in atmosphere. There are three types of weathering processes. One, mechanical weathering. Second, chemical weathering. Third, biological weathering. This division is on the basis of the agents that affect the disintegration of rocks. Let's read mechanical weathering. Mechanical weathering is also known as physical weathering. It is the other name of mechanical weathering. In fact, mechanical change refers to the change in the physical form of any object. This does not change the original composition of the object. Mechanical weathering is the physical process in which the rock is broken into the small pieces. Here, mechanical weathering involves the process of breaking up a rock and changes physical appearance of the rock. For example, ice freezing and expanding in cracks in the rocks, tree roots growing in similar cracks. With difference in daytime and nighttime temperature, cracks appear in the rocks and it changes the physical appearance of the rock. The chemical composition of the weathered rocks does not change during the mechanical weathering. So there is no change in the chemical composition of the rock. There are two main agents which are responsible for the occurrence of mechanical weathering. First is change in temperature, second is freezing action of water. Let's continue with the reading. In hot and arid region, arid means dry, especially in the desert means dry and sandy area, temperature changes is a cause of mechanical weathering. The rocks on the surface of the earth are heated during the day and cooled during the night. Different minerals, means underground wealth, are present in the rocks which may expand and contract different rates with the change in temperature of atmosphere. In the deserts, there is a great variation in day and night temperature. Due to heat, the outer layer of the rocks are heated up quickly and expands more than the inner layers. This causes stress in the layers of the rocks and cracks develop in the rocks. Desert areas experience a large variation in temperature between day and night. The outer layer of the rocks get heated up rapidly. This expands more than the inner layers. This contrast in temperature causes stress in the layers of the rock and thus develop cracks in it. These cracks result in the loosening of the particles and ultimately breaking up of the rocks into the smaller pieces or the granule fragments, means pieces. Due to temperature changes, the cracks develop in the rocks. These cracks results in loosening the particles and finally the rocks break into smaller pieces. Let's continue. The change in temperature causes block disintegration, granular disintegration and exfoliation. Granule disintegration, when rocks become weak over a period of time due to alternate heating and cooling and expansion and contraction. They disintegrate grain by grain. This is called the granule disintegration. Next is block disintegration. When big blocks of rocks disintegrate from the main rock along the parallel joints or cracks, it is known as the block disintegration. Exfoliation, when the outer shell of the rounded rocks or the surface layers of the rocks become loose and peel off from the main rock, it is called exfoliation. This type of disintegration is similar to the peeled layers of an onion. Hence, it is also known as onion peeling. In this type of weathering, there is the expansion and contraction of the outer layer of the rock over a period of time. This repeated cycle results in exfoliation. Let's continue. Freezing action of water. Most of these substances expand on heating and contract on cooling. Water is an exception which expands on cooling. The total expansion of water on the cooling is about 9% of its original volume. This expansion of water on cooling causes disintegration of rocks. Here, most of these substances expand on heating and contract on cooling, but water expands on cooling and it is about 9% of its original volume. This expansion of water on cooling causes disintegration or breaking of rocks. In cool temperate zones, freezing and thawing occur many times in a year. In such regions, water that fill up the crack in the rock freezes and turns into ice at night. When water freezes, it expands by 9% of its original volume. This causes the rock to crack. During the day, this ice filled in the cracks melts and then the water seeps further into the cracks. At night, the water again freezes, thus producing force sufficient for the gradual breakdown of the rocks into the smaller pieces. In the mountains, the water is filled up in the cracks of the rocks and freezes during night due to low temperature, and it expands by 9% of its original volume, and this causes the rocks to crack. During the day, ice melts and the water seeps further into the cracks and the cracks widened. This process continues and gradually the rock breaks up into the smaller pieces. This process of crumbling of rocks because of continuous freezing and thawing of water is also called as a frost action. Chemical weathering. Chemical change refers to the change in the internal structure of any substance object. During the chemical change, the components of the object may react with carbon dioxide, oxygen, water, moisture means amount of water vapor present in the air, heat. Chemical weathering involves decay means destroy or ruin of rocks that cause changes in their chemical composition. Here, chemical weathering refers to the change in the internal structure of any substance. Chemical weathering also brings about changes in the appearance of the rocks due to the influence of high temperature and abundant moisture. Chemical weathering occurs due to the chemical action of air and water on the minerals present in the rocks. We also observe changes in the appearance of the rocks due to the chemical weathering. This process is highly influenced by high temperature, heat, and abundant moisture of water. All these agents are found in the tropical regions. Tropical means area between the two tropics. Water is the main agent of chemical weathering. Here, the chemical weathering takes place in all the regions where there is a high temperature and abundance of moisture. These agents are found in the tropical regions. Water is the main agent of chemical weathering. Water is inactive in its pure form, but even a small amount of dissolved material make it very active. To disintegrate the rocks. Chemical weathering involves carbonation or acidification, hydrolysis or hydration, oxidation, and solution. Let's read more about them. Solution. Dissolution is the process wherein the rainwater, mainly acid rain, Acid rain is a result of air pollution. Some of these gases, especially nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxides, react with the tiny droplets of water in clouds to form sulfuric and nitric acids. The rain from these clouds then falls as very weak acid. This rain is known as acid rain. The Taj Mahal is turning yellow due to acid rain because of the air pollution around Agra, where the Taj Mahal is located. And the effect of acid rain on Taj Mahal you can see clearly in the picture. Dissolves the soluble minerals present in the rocks. These minerals like limestone, rock salt or gypsum dissolve in water, thus disintegrate in the form of solution. This results in the breakdown of the rocks. Solution is the simplest form of chemical weathering in which some minerals dissolve when rainwater falls on the rocks. In this process, the rocks disintegrate when the soluble minerals dissolve and are washed away in the form of solution. Some examples of soluble minerals are rock salt, limestone, gypsum and silica. Oxidation. When minerals present in the rock react with the atmospheric oxygen or the present in the rainwater, the decomposition of the rocks takes place. This process is called oxidation or iron rusting of the rocks. This process of chemical weathering is similar to the rusting of iron that take place in the presence of air and water. In simple words, the atmospheric oxygen is absorbed by the certain minerals present in some rocks, resulting in the formation of a new chemical compound which is much easily eroded. The reaction between the mineral present in the rocks with the atmospheric oxygen present in the rainwater leads to the decomposition of rocks. This process is known as oxidation. This process of chemical weathering is similar to the rusting of iron that take place in the presence of air and water. Oxidation results in the formation of a new chemical compounds that even change the color of the rocks. Eventually the rock loses its chemical composition and break up into the various layers. This process is very similar to the rusting of iron in the presence of air and water. The process of oxidation weakens the rocks and changes the color of the rocks. For example, many rocks contain some amount of mineral iron. When iron absorbs oxygen from the atmosphere, it undergoes changes its color and form. It becomes a brown or red powdery mass which is easily eroded. In this picture, oxidation occurs in the rocks that contains iron and its color and form is totally changed. Hydration or hydrolysis. When water combines chemically with the minerals present in the rock, it expands. This process is known as hydration or hydrolysis. For example, when water is added to feldspar, the volume of rock increases. Hence, the hydration causes stress on the mineral present in the rocks, which get separated into loose particles and thereby leading to disintegration. In simple words, the chemical action of water with some minerals present in the rock is called hydration. When water is absorbed by the minerals, there is a chemical change and increase in the size of mineral structure. For example, it is given in your book, feldspar and potash absorb water and become a powdery substance. When water combines with feldspar, the volume of rock increases and causes stress on the mineral present in the rocks, resulting in the disintegration of rocks. This is a picture of hydration. You can clearly see the broken particles of the rocks due to minerals in the rock absorb water and expand, creating stress which causes the disintegration of the rocks. Carbonation or acidification refers to the absorption of carbon dioxide by the rainwater. When some of the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere is dissolved in the rainwater, a weak carbonic acid is formed. This carbonic acid reacts chemically with certain rocks and disintegrates them. This process occurs when carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is absorbed by the minerals present in the rocks. When carbon dioxide dissolves in the rainwater, it forms a weak carbonic acid. Example, limestone. Rocks form calcium carbonate with carbonic acid, which is more soluble in water and can be easily removed as water flows over the rock. Thus, these rocks get disintegrate through carbonation. In this picture, you can clearly see that carbon dioxide dissolved in the rainwater reacts chemically on limestones and causes small pits and grooves on the surface of the rocks such as limestone, chalk and marble. Let's continue with biological weathering. Biological weathering means the wearing down of the rocks by living things such as plants, animals and human beings. It causes both disintegration and decomposition of rocks. Let us read more about this topic. Biological weathering. Many a times plants, animals and even human activities disintegrate the rocks. This process of weathering is called biological weathering. Truly, the biological changes refer to the changes brought about by the living beings. These changes may be in the physical as well as a chemical form of object. Hence, we can say that the weathering of rocks caused because of the action of living beings is called biological weathering. Biological weathering can be caused by the plants or trees, animals or human beings. Biological weathering causes disintegration and decomposition of rocks. These changes may be in a form of physical as well as chemical form of object. So truly biological changes refer to the changes brought about by the living beings. Let's continue. Plants and trees. The penetration of the roots of the plants and the trees deep into the cracks of the rocks led to their disintegration. Even a seed of a plant or a tree may sprout in the soil that has collected in cracked rock, results in the disintegration of rocks. The uprooting of trees by the strong winds and storms also breaks the rocks. In fact, as the roots grow, they exert great pressure on the rock, causing them to disintegrate. Let us understand this paragraph. The roots of the plants and trees penetrate deep inside the rocks. They sometimes crack the rocks. As these roots grow, they widen the cracks and cause the rocks to break or disintegrate. The uprooting of the trees by the strong winds also break the rocks. Beside this, water enters in these cracks and may cause chemical weathering and the frost action of water. Let's read further. Animals. When animals graze at a particular area, they uproot the small plants and bushes, which loosens the rocks and widens the cracks. The area where the animal graze are exposed to the external factors responsible for the weathering of rocks. Overgrazing of animals to a particular area leads to the soil erosion because when the animal graze at a particular area, they uproot the small plants and bushes, which loosens the rocks and widens the cracks. Burrowing animals as insect, worms and rodent also actively contribute to the weathering of the rocks as they bring the large quantities of fine and thin materials to the earth's surface, which leads to the loosening of rocks. This also exposes more rocks and even lower layers of the rocks to the other agents of weathering, leading to more disintegration of the rocks. This paragraph means burrowing animals dig holes or burrows or tunnels below the earth's surface, and thus these result in the disintegration of the rocks as they bring large quantities of fine and thin material to the earth's surface. Let's read further. Human beings. Many activities of the human beings, directly or indirectly, lead to weathering of rocks. Human activities such as mining, quarrying for industrial materials, highway construction, excavation for building foundation, deforestation, blasting of hills and ridges by dynamite to build dams, and land cultivation result in fast disintegration of rocks. Human beings are directly or indirectly responsible for weathering of rocks, such as mining means digging out of the earth's surface to get minerals. Quarrying means a process of removing rock, sand or other minerals from the ground in order to use them to produce material for construction or other uses. Blasting of rocks by dynamite for the construction of highways. Dams means high wall built across the river, and the clearing the forest for making it suitable for agriculture that result in fast disintegration of rock. Solve. Discuss the following effects of weathering. The main effects of weathering are landslides, mud flow and soil formation. A landslide is the movement of rock, soil and vegetation down the slope. Heavy rainfall or earthquakes can cause a landslides. Human activities such as removal of trees and vegetation or steep roadside cutting can cause landslides. Landslides mostly happen on the hills during the rainy season. Mud flows are also caused by weathering. It is a flow of water that contains large amount of sand and silt. Mud flows occur on the steep slopes where vegetation is not sufficient to prevent the rapid erosion. Soil formation. Soil is formed from the weathering of rocks and minerals, the process of breaking down of large rocks into the smaller pieces. These pieces further divided into sand and silt and pebbles. Over a long period of time, this forms a thin layer of soil. Soil is needed to grow plants and trees and also for human survival. Let's read effects of weathering. The main effects of weathering are as follows. It leads to soil formation. Soil means uppermost layer of the earth's surface. Second, it produces a layer of loose material on the surface of the earth, which may cause landslides and mud flows. Landslides and mud flows I have already discussed. This is the end of today's topic. I hope you understood. You are able to solve some exercises. Don't forget to learn the terms. Terms are very important. I'll come with the next video. Thank you.